Okay. So for today's workshop, we will be introducing the guideline update process for two separate programs, the Moyer Program and the Funding Agricultural Replacement Measures for Emission Reductions, also known as Farmer Program. And this is the first public workshop. And we have staff here from the Moyer Program and also from Farmer, who will go over their respective programs. We want to note that there will be future workshops and work group meetings, and those will be held separately for these teams respectively. Next slide, please. Before we dive in, we want to go over some meeting agreements that we strive to uphold during this workshop and our future workshops. Please be respectful to all, take space and make space, listen and understand, strive to follow an equity approach when we're helping to strategize solutions for these incentive programs. And as a reminder, equity recognizes that advantages and barriers exist. And as a result, we do not all start at the same place. And thank you in advance for your cooperation and collaboration. Next slide, please. So in this first workshop, we'll be providing an overview of the incentive programs. Today's workshop will specifically cover the Moyer Program and the Farmer Program. Again, each program will have future workshop meetings held separately, and these workshops will prepare the respective guidelines to be taken to the board for consideration in June of 2024. Next slide. On today's agenda, we will start with a brief overview of incentives. Then the Moyer team will present on the Moyer Program, and the Farmer Program will then present on the Farmer Program. And each program will also go over the guideline update process for their guidelines ahead of the board meeting in 2024. We have 3 open discussion sections during this presentation, and throughout the presentation, you may use the Q&A feature, which you see at the bottom of your screen, throughout the presentation. So you may use this feature, and then we'll address each of the Q&A submissions during the open discussion sections later. Next slide, please. So first, we're going to go over the incentives overview. Next slide. Incentives play a critical role in today's ever-changing landscape, and California is the leading the nation, and some may say the world as well, in the transition to a cleaner technology, including zero-emission technology. Highlighting the California's goal is the Governor's Executive Order, N7920, that calls for California's transition to 100% zero emission by 2035 for drayage trucks, 2045 for heavy-duty vehicles, as well as 2035 for zero-emission off-road vehicles and equipment where feasible. Incentives encourage businesses to transition to cleaner technology, and it also stimulates the marketplace to manufacture cleaner technology as well. Next slide. So CARB's portfolio of incentive programs includes those that CARB implements and those that CARB provides guidelines for air districts to implement. Each of these incentive programs provides its own niche opportunity for those interested in applying for incentives. Today, we'll be talking about 2 programs that are implemented by the air districts, which are the Moyer Program and the Farmer Program. Next slide. We have close working relationship with our state's 35 air districts who implement many of the CARB incentive programs, including Moyer and Farmer. You may know these air districts as an air pollution control district, an air management district, or an air resources district. If you're a California resident, you are living in one of these air districts, as shown on this map on this slide. Note that these air districts choose to participate in these programs. Next slide. So you're probably wondering, what are the roles between CARB and the air district? For CARB, these roles are for the incentive programs, specifically Moyer and farmer programs, include developing and revising the guidelines, managing and distributing program funds, and providing district oversight. And that means program assistance, data management, and also program reviews and financial reviews to ensure that program goals are met. These programs would not be successful, however, without the districts that implement them. And that implementation is through selecting projects that meet the local air quality needs. They monitor the projects over the lifetime to ensure that they're operational and the project emissions or reductions are realized. And some of the duties involved monitoring can include, but are not limited to, project audits, inspections, and annual reports. Revitalizing the guidelines are bringing a new opportunity also for community engagement. So we will be making a concerted effort to engage our communities, starting with our participation in the evening community meeting later today. And we are excited to make this conscious and purposeful effort to hear our community's feedback to better understand the specific community needs. I will now be handing this over to Josh Simmons, and let's go to the next slide.
Thank you, Debbie. First up, we will provide an overview of the CARB Moyer program. Next slide. The CARB Moyer program is aptly named after Dr. Carl Moyer himself. Dr. Moyer's extraordinary dedication, vision, and leadership made this program possible, uniting business and government in the name of public health to improve California's air quality. Program development started in 1998, and in 1999, the board officially adopted the guidelines. Since then, it has been updated in 2005, 2008, 2011, and 2017. Smaller updates, such as updating a specific chapter, also occurred through the years. The program was driven first by cost-effective NOx reductions, but has since expanded to include ROG and PM as well. The CARB Moyer program is the longest continuously funded incentive program in the state and has provided over $1 billion in incentive funding to its 35 air districts since inception. For fiscal year 2023-2024, $123 million was allocated in funding. Next slide. The CARB Moyer program is a statewide emission reduction program that supports multiple categories. Categories have also been added over time. By statute, emission reductions must be creditable to the State Implementation Plan, commonly referred to as a SIP. This means that a project must be surplus to any regulation or rule, permanent, quantifiable, and enforceable. As alluded to in the last slide, projects must also be cost-effective. The air districts ensure that projects meet the required criteria. The program would not be successful without CARB's partnership with the air districts. Next slide. The CARB Moyer program's guidelines are currently organized into 10 chapters followed by appendices A through E. Each chapter is dedicated to a specific topic or category. In preparing the guideline updates to be taken to the board in June 2024, each of these chapters will be revisited and updated where needed as the industry and regulatory landscape has changed since 2017. Throughout the process, CARB staff and air districts will be working closely together with public input to identify the areas for updates for each chapter in an organized and collaborative manner. Next slide. Additionally, Volume 2 of the CARB Moyer Program Guidelines contains standalone programs with their own set of guidelines. We currently have 2 voucher incentive programs, also known as VIP. These are the On-Road VIP and Off-Road VIP programs. The On-Road Voucher Incentive Program is a standalone program for small fleet owners of 10 vehicles or less. It is subject to the administrative processes, cost-effectiveness limits, and emission reduction calculation methodologies of the CARB Moyer Program Guidelines as well. It provides a streamlined approach to reduce emissions by replacing existing high-polluting vehicles with newer zero-emission vehicles. Real emission benefits are achieved by retiring the high polluting vehicle earlier than would have been expected through normal attrition or by regulation. The on-road VIP consists of its own guidelines and appendix that will be revisited and edited where appropriate as well. The off-road voucher incentive program provides a streamlined approach to reduce emissions by replacing existing high-polluting equipment with newer, lower-emission equipment. The off-road VIP provides real emission benefits by retiring the high-polluting equipment earlier than would have been expected through normal attrition or by regulation. The Agricultural Assistance Program allows air districts to use their AB 923 funds, also known as $2 DMV funds, which are non-Carl Moyer funds administered through the Carl Moyer program. These funds can be used for new purchases, retrofit, repower, or add-on of previously unregulated equipment for agricultural sources. Unlike the Carl Moyer program, the Agricultural Assistance Program does not require the emission reductions achieved to be surplus. Therefore, these funds can be used to pay for compliance in certain categories. However, the Agricultural Assistance Program does follow the Moyer Program guidelines for project selection and grant awards. Next slide. As mentioned before, the Carl Moyer guidelines went through a statutory-driven, comprehensive update in 2017, and since then, new technologies have come to market, new targets and ambitions have been announced, and new regulations have been put in place. We are eager to begin the process of modernizing the guidelines with the support and collaboration of the air districts and our collective stakeholders. A comprehensive update will ensure consistency throughout the source category chapters, along with modernizing the guidelines to reflect current regulations, changes in program administration, and advances in technology like zero-emission technology, to name a few. We will also be looking at streamlining guideline processes, aligning the program with other incentive program guidelines where feasible so that they are complementary to one another, and increasing transparency and clarity. Next slide. During this process, our team, alongside with air districts throughout the public process, will provide a comprehensive review of the Carl Moyer Program guidelines, including its program administration, each of the source category chapters, emission factors and calculations, and updates to Volume 2. Next slide. On this slide, you'll see that there will be additional workshops after today's. We plan to have workshops in early 2024 before we go to the board in June. For more information about the program, we have provided a few links for you to visit at your discretion. Next slide. If you wish to participate in this upcoming public process, you can visit the Carl Moyer Program website listed on the slide and subscribe to the bulletins that will be sent out, or send an email to Deborah Paselk or our program email. From our webpage, you may also find other helpful information, such as the current and past versions of the guidelines, our program statistics, and other resources. Next slide. We will now open the floor for discussion. First, we will address the Q&A submissions. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you are on the phone and would like to speak, please dial #2 and we will unmute you when it is your turn. Please state your name and affiliation before asking a question or making a comment. As we mentioned earlier in this workshop, please be respectful, take space and make space, and listen to understand. So for the first Q&A question, we have a question from Mark Roest. How about helping bring new technologies to market as well as assisting market penetration when commercialized?
Yeah, great question, Mark. Definitely, and we welcome ways to better improve that. And so I hope we're getting to the crux of your question, and definitely staff and everyone jump in. But ultimately, incentives really do help drive that. And today's purpose, we are hoping to gather some feedback on ways that we can better streamline that or better improve those processes. So I would love to engage in conversation if you want to unmute yourself and just kind of give a little bit more clarity to your question. Not sure if he's unmuted or not, but
I can give him the ability to unmute if you would like. Let me.
oh, yeah. And then furthermore, to directly to your question, there are a suite of incentives here at CARB, CARB's incentive portfolio, that offer a range of opportunity from the pre-commercial phase all the way to the commercial phase. So each of the different incentive programs do serve those various purposes. So love to chat a little bit more on the specifics, or maybe the specific technology that you're speaking to or curious about. But the Moyer program. Oh.
All right. Yeah, I got it sorted out on the synth. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Okay, so basically we are doing non-lithium batteries and non-wafer sawing solar thin film. And we're doing a materials science, ceramic semiconductor materials science that resulted in a patent in 1983 for a solar thin film that was 50% faster than what NASA was paying $100 a watt for in space. So we have a track record of being way in front of the field, and we're looking at that here too. So now we're looking at 40% plus efficiency solar thin film and 2 to 5 kilowatt hours per kilogram in terms of cell efficiency for batteries. So, but we're still developing it. So we're doing proofs of concept now, and we're trying to move the laboratory back from Iowa back to California, and basically establish production. First a laboratory to finish development, and then factories. And we're looking at what he's just calculated today was 5 to 10 terawatt hours or terawatts of capacity per year production in factories the size of a Tesla factory. It can be smaller and more spread out too. But just to give you an idea, we're looking at being able to really accelerate things so that there is no longer a range versus weight anxiety for the Class 8 truck driver, and so that there's no longer a cost issue. And of course, our batteries will be made in the USA with North American materials, as will our solar thin film. So that means that the $45 per kilowatt hour for batteries and the 30% or 33%, whatever it is, subsidy for solar thin film will also be in play. So, but we don't have a lot of money. We can't put it into, we can't go to a VC who wants to sell it off to the market, because the buyer will be the oil industry and they'll shut it down. So we're looking for funding.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mark. And thank you for your detailed question, and always happy to chat offline about specifics. But again, CARB's incentive portfolio, we offer a range of opportunities, and so happy to discuss a little bit more about that.
Thank you.
All righty. I think we have a handful of questions. So I mean, we can keep going down the list. I don't know if there's a certain order. And we'll go ahead and mute Mark and go to the next one.
Hi, Sandra, this is Cruz. I'm monitoring the Q&A. We have 5 more Q&As, and the next one is from Tony Vargas. His question is the Carl Moyer Off-Road VIP program only provided for fleets under a certain size?
Yes, it is for 10 vehicles or less.
Yeah, and to add a little bit of context, the voucher incentive programs are exclusively for smaller fleets, right? That 10 and less. And so we have the on-road and the off-road sector. And so it just gives the small fleets a greater opportunity to really hone in on the resources needed. And so those streamlined programs are dedicated to, again, those smaller fleets there, and to really help and support those in that have a little bit less resources. So.
If that answers that question, I'll move on to the next from Lisa McKee. Off-grid charging solutions will help fill the gap for immediate and phase 1 adoption prior to permanent solutions are going to scale. This appears to be a comment. Would you like me to move on to the next?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, is there a clarifying question there? Did the speaker want to provide any clarification?
Lisa McKee, I'm unmuting your mic if you would like to provide clarification or a question.
Hi, it's Lisa McKee. I'm with Tom's Truck Center. We're a medium heavy duty commercial truck dealer in California. And so what we have is obviously the gaps I think you guys are trying to see from stakeholders, what could be identified as other resources for the funding to reduce these gaps and barriers. And we find that off-grid solutions, I don't care what size of fleet you are, public, small, large, rental, anything, you know, the current infrastructure through the grid has got super long lead times and their own, I think, oh, how do you put it politically correct? You know, just their own lack of structure that's consistently reliable to the programs and the awards that are being processed all the way from the start of application to design, to construction, to supply chain. It's just a mess. Okay. And they have too many people that come and go, and it's just hard to keep a progress moving. And I know that we've talked a lot through CalStart and I think CPUC proceedings, not CalStart, sorry, it was CEC with CPUC proceedings as it relates to the enforcement of some of these programs that are meant to require the utilities to fast track this along with the AHJs. I don't know what can be done there, but that's its own set of problems and why I think we need to make sure that we move the projects forward with mandates that are already upon us as of officially 1/1/2024 with some off-grid solutions. And that would be the purpose for that. It's not obviously a permanent solution. It's not for big projects, but it certainly will allow 1 truck, 3 trucks, and maybe even probably a maximum of 5 trucks to adopt and have that truck delivered with infrastructure that would be on a grid or a skid and off grid, because it wouldn't require the grid to support it, and it would be limited. But you know, every experience that shows it can be done will really provide an experience that's missing, and a lot of people that talk about a lot of things really haven't experienced it. So I just think this is necessary. That'd be one aspect of the off-grid solutions. And funding that could support that would be critical, because that can be pretty expensive, as well as any other type of infrastructure program. I'll stop there. I have a few other comments, but I'll stop there to see if there's any questions you have with my comment.
Yeah, I'll definitely tee it up, and just thank you again for that comment and the feedback there. And we do have some flexibilities in our current chapter of the infrastructure chapter for the Moyer program that does allow us to review what we're calling kind of these case-by-case scenarios to just understand the complexity. And it just gives us additional data for us to make an effective call and appropriately put it to black and white in our guideline chapter. And so I do welcome additional feedback. And again, it's currently not prohibited, but we are exploring and looking at this on more of a case-by-case matter. So I'll tee it up. I know we have our I think we have our infrastructure lead. I'm not sure if he has anything to add other than what I just shared. But again, we do welcome that type of project through our case-by-case route.
Okay, well, I'll just add to that as it would, on case by case, in the business as it relates to serving customers, and we got well over a couple hundred sales in our pipeline and customers that are going to hold back delivery because of infrastructure. So that doesn't serve us well when we've got funding that's appropriated for a purpose, and we've got trucks that are sold but can't deliver, right? And it just jeopardizes the whole experiences, because most of these programs are tied to a delivery deadline. So that means these awards can go south really quick and the experiences go south. And so we need a solution that is going to allow us to get out of being dependent on the grid and the IOUs to do what they have a budget to do, but they just can't do it fast enough.
No, yeah, I can hear that and I understand. And we too, the amount of challenges associated with infrastructure, we're hearing the backlog, the timing, it's just really complex. And so we do empathize with you with that. And we are welcome to creative solutions for our Moyer chapter on ways that we can better streamline that. I know the team has been looking at extending different deadlines, trying to get different pieces to move more efficiently internally to really expedite that process. And so again, we recognize and hear this concern, and we're doing the best that we can to really understand and really find the best way to by no means diminish it, but alleviate some of the current concerns with the infrastructure projects. So thank you for your comment and feedback.
The one thing I'd make, just to add to the last two items I had for comments on infrastructure specifically, the hydrogen doesn't seem to provide a renewables program directly like you have for electric with solar and wind. I think it'd be important to make sure that you are doing something for biogas, hydrogen. Spice fleet. Oh, just recording things going off and on. And the small size fleets, I think, need to have something like your VIP program. I mean, again, population of those small size fleets is and the mandates and everything else is kind of an opportunity, I think, to revisit. That's all for the infrastructure side. And on the comments related to vehicles, there's two things I have there. One is I think we should have a match that's for the same definition that HVIP has for small fleets, which I know was just adopted on November 17th. But that's for 20 vehicle fleet size. I think that should be something that should be considered or maybe at least discussed. And the other part of that is short-term rentals and leases. They kind of put together a project in HVIP called the ISIP program, which allows innovative solutions that bring about these types of programs. So dealers or rentals are buying a limited amount of vehicles and putting together a program with activity. I think something like that should be done as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And again, we appreciate all the feedback and consideration, and that's what this public process is for. And so with that, I will say currently within our chapters and the Moyer program funds a variety of technology, but leasing specifically is not necessarily prohibited in our contract routes. And so different again, it is that CVC because there's just so much complexity that does go with leasing. But we do, this is an area that we are exploring and that we are considering looking into a little bit more to understand if there's a way that we can put something together or some type of package, if you will, on the vehicle side and the infrastructure side. And if there's any type of leasing consideration in that. And so I thank you for that feedback and comment and welcome further recommendations.
Hi, due to time, we'll move on to the next Q&A. Our next Q&A is from an anonymous attendee. To align with ACF requirements, will CARB Moyer programs move towards only accepting ZEVs for the vehicle grant programs?
Sorry, my audio cut out a little bit to learn. Would you mind just repeating that one more time, Cruz?
To align with ACF requirements, will CARB Moyer programs move towards only accepting ZEVs, zero emission vehicles, for the vehicle grant programs?
Oh, great question. Thank you. So with the ACF requirements underway, Moyer does offer zero emission incentive grants, but it's not specifically restricted to that. And so there's still other opportunities for advanced technology. But with that, we do align with Governor Newsom's direction, and we are encouraging zero emission technology, but we aren't explicitly restricted with that. So hopefully, anonymous attendee, that answers your question.
Thank you. We do have 9 additional questions, but I do want to reiterate there will be open discussion towards the end of this presentation. I do want to hand it back over to Josh Simmons for the raise hand attendees.
Thank you, Cruz. Looks like we have 3 different raised hands in the group. So I'll start with the first one. So I'll start with Mark. Mark, I know you spoke earlier, but just as a reminder, please state your name and affiliation. I'm going to allow you to unmute.
Thank you. Mark Roost with Sustainable Energy, Inc., and I'm an advisor for the Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition as well. And I'm responding to the issue of the charging from the grid not being available anywhere from 2 to 7 years out, depending on the size of the fleet and its load. So the answer is high efficiency solar PV with battery storage on both rooftops and canopies over parking and driveways can produce enough electricity for truck fleets or bus fleets or whatever, as well as this also works for residential light duty vehicles. That's really the solution, and the cost within a year we could be in production, in volume production, up to mass production within a year and a half if we were funded now. Oh, and the cost will be dirt cheap. For the storage will be like $15 a kilowatt hour after the IRA reduction, and the electricity will be probably about 25 cents a watt rather than 35 cents a watt with the IRA subsidies for that. That's the price. The actual levelized price would be done at a penny per kilowatt hour for the solar and a penny per kilowatt hour for the storage, instead of what today is 12 cents for solar plus storage combined kilowatt hour and 5 cents for just one.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mark, for your comment.
You're welcome.
Right. And we have one more hand, and that's Greg. Greg, please state your name and affiliation. I'm going to give you permission to unmute.
Hi, actually, this is Terry Mannies. I snuck in under Greg Betzweiser's registration. I'm with Orange EV, and we are an OEM of electric terminal trucks. And I'm wondering, I typed in a question. I'm wondering what the best way is for us to provide feed. We have some substantial feedback to recommend. And I'm wondering what the best way to do that is, so we don't have to have everybody sit through all of the yapping that I could do. And it's things like, are we going to be able to address the allowable age of vehicles being scrapped? Are we going to be able to address the amount of on-site inspection that needs to happen? There's so many things that slow the process down overall. And I'm wondering sort of where that can be addressed best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and just teeing up a variety of topics for consideration. I would suggest our Moyer help right here on the screen, the Moyer help at arb.ca.gov, and we can gather all those comments and topics of consideration and changes, and then we can follow up with you on that.
That's great. Thank you. I don't know if I'm still unmuted or not, but that's great. That's what we'll do. Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe the hands that are still up are remaining from earlier. So maybe at this time we can go ahead and pass it along to the farmer team for the next portion of the presentation.
So next slide.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jason Crow, and I'm the manager of the farmer program here at CARB. And as Sandra mentioned earlier, the farmer guidelines update process is also kicking off right now. And while it is moving forward as a separate process from the Moyer guidelines update, we are coordinating closely as we are doing today in this kickoff workshop. And so with that, I will now turn things over to Evan Powers from the farmer team. Take it away, Evan.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Evan Powers here. I'm one of the proud staff here at CARB who work on the farmer program. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I'm here to tell you about our plan for some upcoming changes in the program and answer any questions you have. But first, I'd like to provide a little bit of background information on the program. So in fiscal year 2017-2018, the California State Legislature appropriated $135 million to CARB to essentially reduce ag sector emissions. Subsequently, CARB staff developed the Funding Agricultural Replacement Measures for Emission Reductions, or Farmer Program for short. And the guidelines for Farmer were subsequently approved in March of 2018. To streamline the implementation of the funding, we modeled Farmer after the Moyer Program, in that the funding is distributed to the local air districts, as previously described, at which point those districts are responsible for collecting applications, selecting projects to fund, and otherwise implementing the program at the local level. Farmer does differ from Moyer in that Farmer funding is specific to replacing vehicles and equipment used at agricultural operations, as defined in our guidelines. Next slide, please. Generally, eligible project categories in Farmer include off-road ag equipment, such as tractors and harvesters and sprayers, heavy-duty on-road trucks, zero-emission utility terrain vehicles, or UTVs, and there's even a category for advanced technology demonstrations, among others. Over the past 6 years, since the program's inception, Farmer has received continued support from the legislature and has been appropriated about $760 million. The program has also utilized board-granted executive officer authority to modify existing project criteria and expand with additional project categories since the program's inception, which brings us to today. Next slide, please. So at this point, in addition to our original guidelines, we have subsequent memos that contain various modifications and additional project criteria. There are also various new administrative and project modifications that have been requested from the ag industry, from various air districts, etc. With that, we're considering updates to the Farmer Program guidelines to develop a single comprehensive document that accounts for necessary admin and project category changes to the current guidelines, provides additional flexibilities, and otherwise aids in air district implementation of the program. Our tentative plan at this point is to conduct farmer-specific work group meetings in early 2024, early next year, as the table in the slide suggests. And these are really to hash out details of the changes under consideration. And like Debbie mentioned earlier, ultimately this process will culminate in a presentation to CARB's board for consideration at the June 2024 board hearing. Next slide, please. So if you wish to participate in this upcoming public process, you can visit the Farmer Program website listed on the slide and subscribe to bulletins that'll be sent out, or send me an email directly, or feel free to give me a call as well. That phone number comes straight to my desk. Send an email to the program email as well. This concludes the farmer portion of this meeting, but I do want to point out, and I think it may answer one of the questions in the Q&A, that if for any folks on the line who may be interested in applying for funding, I'd recommend that you reach out to your local air district for information about funding availability, application instructions, deadlines, etc. You can find a great list of air district contact information on our website as well. On the left navigation bar, you'll see a link for district contacts. And with that, I think we can open it up to questions before we can toss it back over to the Moyer folks. First, I think we're going to address the Q&A submissions as it relates to the ag side, to the farmer program. And I'll remind folks that if you'd like to ask a question, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And then if you're calling in by phone, please dial #2 and we'll unmute you when it's your turn. And I guess I can hand it off to the Moyer folks to moderate any questions.
Thank you, Evan. For the Q&A, we currently have 7 Q&A available. I'm going to look for the farmer-specific Q&A for you. We have a question from Tony Vargas. The city of Oakland is considering an electric forklift. Well, actually, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not really. I'm looking at the Q&A. I don't think any of these are farmer specific.
Yes, I agree. I think
yeah, I'll be here just for folks, just so they know, I'll be here and happy to answer any questions that pop up. So as you think of any farmer specific questions, I'll be here, and I'll certainly be able to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to the Moyer folks.
Do we have any raised hands or anything? If not, we can just move it back to the slides, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay.
It looks like we have one raised hand.
Okay.
And it's Mark. So Mark, you now have permission to unmute.
Thank you. So Mark Roos, Sustainable Energy Inc. and Silicon Valley Clean Cities Coalition, and specifically agri-solar is what I'm wondering about for charging the farm equipment. Agri-solar has the benefit of actually mitigating the climate change for crops that are sensitive to too much sun, and also giving on-site, very, very local on-site supply of electricity. And would you be funding that, or would that have to go through the CEC? And would you encourage it? Would you coordinate with that sort of thing? In one way or another, encourage that happening?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. I appreciate the question. So the farmer program in general funds ag equipment, so it would have to be tied to, at least the way it's currently structured, any infrastructure would have to be tied to a piece of mobile equipment or a piece of zero emission equipment that would be tied to that electrical
infrastructure. That would be the reason. Yeah, that would be the idea. The agri-solar providing shade and generating electricity for the ag equipment. That's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, if it's tied to a project, a combustion equipment replacement project, I don't see why. I mean, it boils down to whether a district would want to pursue something like that. We also do have a category, like I mentioned in one of the slides, for advanced technology demonstration projects. So, basically in farmer, we've got as I mentioned in one of my slides, we've got a whole menu of options of project categories that the districts can choose to fund. The advanced technology demonstration category is one of them. So that's always an option for a district to want to pursue. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but really, if it's tied to a piece of equipment, there's a potential that it could be eligible. Otherwise, if it's just a solar project at a farm, it most likely isn't going to be eligible.
So yeah, the other question that goes along with that nests right into what you just asked or said is conversion. So a lot of farm equipment, was built to last forever. And so get rid of that internal combustion engine that's polluting and replace it with an electric drivetrain. And there are electric tractors now that are brand new, but I'm talking about converting the old equipment so that the farmer only has to deal with the battery pack at $3 or $15 a kilowatt hour, which is almost nothing because of the IRA, and they have to deal with wheel motors, and we've got designs for that. And they're using replacements for neodymium magnets, so they'll be less expensive and more powerful because the power is the magnets and the transformers are out on the rim instead of in the hub, so you have more leverage, so you have more.
Yeah, I mean, if something like that is tied to an electric tractor, it's eligible currently.
But
and I mean, really, and just as a heads up, the purpose of this workshop was really to let folks know what our upcoming process is going to be like. I think for the farmer, I'll expand for the farmer program. Like I had mentioned, our public process is going to be early next year, and we're hoping to have a discussion document with all of our guidelines written down for folks to actually respond to and comment on. But I appreciate the comment.
Well, would it be possible? Is it within the legal scope of the funding for the Carl Moyer program to do, instead of scrap, convert instead of scrap for old farm equipment, old off-road equipment? Convert,
so you're talking Carl Moyer or farmer? Because farmer has a little bit.
Under farmer. I'm sorry, farmer.
Farmer had, luckily, fortunately, farmer does have a little bit more flexibility, but the way the budget language allocates the funding, it does point to equipment. And that's why for infrastructure projects, it really does have to be tied to a piece of equipment.
But I mean, I'm drilling into the part about, can we convert the equipment instead of replacing the equipment? Can we repower the equipment from diesel to battery electric?
Repowers are eligible. In fact, our stationary ag pump electrification projects are considered repowers, and we fund those currently.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. So I can't see any other raised hands. Debbie, I'm looking at the Q&A.
Yeah.
Looks like I can toss it back over. But again, I've got a couple other folks on the farmer team that are in attendance, and if anything else comes up ag related, we're happy to chime in.
Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, and then we'll open it back up for general discussion. So thank you again, Evan. Before we get to the open discussion, we're going to briefly go over and share a summary of our how did you get a hold of, see where these next workshops and work groups happen. So let me go over, next slide, please. So for future workshop information and notifications, they'll be distributed in a similar manner as this one. You can also visit our program web pages. Right now, this is an example of the farmers web page, and you'll see you can check out current upcoming meetings and workshop information along with subscribing to updates and news. So you'll see on the top right-hand corner, that's an example of if you click on the meeting and workshops, it will actually show them when they occur and how to register for them. And then you'll see in the lower right-hand corner how to subscribe. So you can do that via this email subscription service, and this will allow you to subscribe to them and select what preferred topics you're interested in. Also, our respective teams will also be holding work groups. The Moyer work groups will be held with the air districts, and as Evan said earlier, the farmers work groups will be held with air districts and includes visiting parts of California. Additionally, prior to the guidelines going out in June, we'll also have a for each one of the programs our own public notice comment period, and we'll be announcing that also on these websites. So next slide. So now we'll open it back up again for open discussion. Again, you can submit additional Q&A submissions if you haven't already submitted them. I see we have 6 right now, but if you'd also like to raise your hand and speak, you can again use the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, you can do that by dialing #2. And then we'll unmute you when it's your turn. Again, please state your name and affiliation before asking a question or making a comment. And like we said earlier, please be respectful, take space, make space, and listen and understand. So I will turn it back over to Cruz for our first Q&A question. If you can open that up now, Cruz.
Yes, thank you, Deborah. We have 6 open Q&As. The first is from Matthew Deal. Will the Carl Moyer VIP Onward program be stackable with the HVIP program?
And Cruz, if actually you could answer that, because that is
Yes, I was
co-funding.
waiting to get prompted. Yes, it can be stacked with HVIP program. As long as both program requirements are met. We understand HVIP will be updating their program requirements, so please be mindful of that. But they can be stacked for VIP and HVIP. We recommend trying to look at VIP requirements first, but also keep in mind HVIP requirements as well.
Thank you, Cruz. Any additional comments on that from the person who answered that question? Just to make sure. Do we raise hand or anything for that?
He has a different question in the Q&A. But,
okay.
I see a raised hand. Do you want me to unmute?
Is it the person who asked the question?
No, it's a different person. Okay, do you want me to move on to the next question?
Yeah, let's move on to the next question, and then the person with the raised hand will answer your question after we do the Q&As, please. Thank you.
All right, the following question is from Jessica Singh. Are full vessel replacements included as eligible funding equipment in the marine vessels category?
I'm going to ask, Miriam, are you on the line? And if you are, can we please unmute her?
Yes, let me give her the ability to unmute.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So vessel replacements are an eligible category under the marine chapter in the current Carl Moyer Program guidelines that was just updated in September of this year. We are working on more updates to provide a little bit more guidance to the districts under vessel replacements, but at this time they are eligible on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you,
Okay.
Miriam.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have another question from Iman Norden. Overall, is CARB staff anticipating greater stringency for eligibility for Carl Moyer programs, such as limiting eligibility overall to smaller fleets?
That is not something I know that we're considering at this time, but making it any more stringent than I know of. But if you have any more questions about that, we can answer those offline. Next question.
Okay.
Or
Next
Sandra,
question.
did you want to?
Oh,
Sorry, there was a little delay, it froze. No, I think you answered it perfectly. Yeah, we are not looking to make more stringent requirement at this time. I will say that we are welcoming any additional feedback or any type of, if there's specifics that you're experiencing or any type of hurdles, please share with us. And again, you can use that moyer.help@arb.ca.gov if you're anticipating or experiencing anything. So didn't quite catch if it was the affiliation for the question, the person in affiliation, but thank you for your feedback.
Okay, next question.
next question is from Matthew Deal as well. Will there be pre-award authority or a letter of no prejudice procedure for agencies to move forward with long lead time tasks like purchasing materials or buses to ensure the funding does not lapse before funds can be expended?
Interesting question. I would see if we can if Matthew Deal would be open to some more clarifying your question a little bit more. But is the intent here, will there be a pre-award? And I see he's raised his hand, so maybe he can provide some more clarity on this question here.
Matthew, I've given you the ability to unmute.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Perfect. So basically what this question kind of stems from is I know that a lot of these funds have shorter time frames for where you can expend them from when they're awarded. So buses, especially zero emission buses, are getting further and further and further out with their delivery times. It can sometimes be upwards of 24 months. And so the concern is if you get funded, or if you get an award, and then it's 6 months or 7 months, 8 months until you can complete the funding package, and then another couple of months before you can actually order it, you're looking at almost 3 years before you get the buses and pay for the buses and get reimbursed with the awards. And sometimes these funds will lapse before that time period is up. And so if there's a pre-award authority aspect of it where it's a smaller community, there's only one vendor there's only one agency that's eligible, you can set up a pre-award authority or letter of no prejudice, whatever you want to call it, and have it be, you could start the order process or whatever that process is that you're looking at with the approval of the CARB or whoever the managing agency is. And so that was just the intent of the question there.
Perfect. No, thank you. Thank you for that. That provides some additional context there. And I would say that the team will definitely take this feedback back and look into this a little bit more. There's a lot of complexities and nuances into this, and so happy to discuss a little bit more what we can do to really streamline that. But thank you again. Thank you for your comment. And we do recognize that we've been hearing that, and there have been some flexibilities that we've awarded on like a delivery delay, I know on certain types of categories. So we'll continue to look at this a little bit more, and we're open to any feedback you can share with us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Next question is from Tony Vargas. The city of Oakland is considering an electric forklift and a corresponding off-grid charger, such as a EV arc charger for this Carl Moyer grant. Can both projects be combined into one application?
This would be more of a question that you would need to ask the district that you're applying to. So this would most likely be the Bay Area district. So I would refer to them and recommend that you contact them and see if that's the type of procedure they would allow.
And we can put in the chat for that individual contact Air District so they can know how to reach that person. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Shannon Holbrook. Are there any fleet size limits for farmers funding that is 10 or less for VIP?
So yeah, I can take that. Evan Powers with the Farmer Program. So short answer is no, but I did want to clarify, for the farmer program, at the state level, we basically developed a minimum set of requirements that the districts must follow in implementing the program. So even though this answer may be no, there may be additional overlays based on your air district. For instance, districts have discretion to fund at lower levels than we allow if they choose to, if they'd like to spread the funding out further. So really it's a good idea, like Debbie just said, to contact your local air district to see if there are additional overlays in some of the requirements that they have within their local jurisdiction. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you. We have another question from Tom Chamber. It's relatively long, but I'll try to get through this. As a passenger railroad, we would like to see program guidelines recognize that though we want to broadly operate zero-emission locomotives as quickly as possible, there's currently no proven technology to transition to. Manufacturers are eager to partner with us to develop these technologies, but they expect us to significantly subsidize their R&D, making it very costly just to reach the point where we can test a single zero-emission vehicle. For example, 5 times more expensive than a diesel locomotive. In addition, zero-emission technologies like hydrogen will require Federal Railroad Administration approvals before this new equipment can be operated for passenger service, which adds time before emission reductions would materialize. Considering these realities, using traditional Moyer calculations, our proposal probably wouldn't score well even though it is a worthwhile project. Please consider this scenario when revising CARB Moyer guidelines. Or is there another CARB program available to address this?
Thank you for your comment. I really appreciate it, and we will consider it as we're updating the guidelines. I'm not sure if there's another CARB program. I'm gonna see if Ken, are you available? Do you have any idea if there's any? He's our railroad, our locomotive lead.
Yes, thank you, Debbie. Ken Bhatti here. I believe there is the core program, which also offers funding for locomotive projects. And perhaps there might be some Prop 1B funds available depending on the air district. The local air districts would be able to assist you further with other funding opportunities, though.
Thank you, Ken. So go to the next question.
The next question is from Ash Nick-Revan. Since HVIP considers small fleet as 20 or fewer trucks with a GVWR of 8,501 pounds or greater, can CARB consider modifying the VIP program for 2025 to fleets of 20 or fewer to help align eligibility and accessibility? This way, it is easier to understand and promote the program across the board.
Cruz, would you like to answer that? Or this is just a comment? We can take that. Yeah.
Sure, I can take this question. And I just wanted to state that the affiliation is from South Coast here. And we definitely are taking that comment and we'll take that into consideration.
Thank you, Cruz. And Mia Wang has commented that Prop 1B can't fund the passenger fleet. So to let you know that on the railroad locomotive question.
Okay, that concludes the questions. We do have 2 comments, one from Lisa and another from Tom. Lisa's having technical issues. I will help resolve those with her. And I'll note the comment from Tom Chamber, but that concludes the questions in the Q&A.
Thank you, Cruz.
think we have some hands raised if we want to then open it up for the, I think there's a couple.
We do. So we have Lisa, and I believe that her note in the Q&A might be addressing these potential technical difficulties, but let's see if we can assist her.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, perfect. Okay, yeah, thank you. My question was, or I don't know if it's a question or comment, but I want to make sure that if we could find maybe a more effective tool or process for whether it's a dealer with your South Coast AQMD programs and or the public and or a fleet that could visit these different guides as well as chapters that, whether they're on the Carl Moyer website or on CARBs. It would be helpful if we came up with a tool that provides a little more clarity on really what is that rebate. Sometimes these answers are taking extremely long, and that creates its own set of obstacles and challenges, as well as a different and not so good experiences. So it seems like we should be able to at least come up with a tool that's got a good estimate based on that mileage and based on the age and based on what else is there? The size of the fleet, location of the fleet. I think that covers everything you guys are usually looking for. And then you've got that ability to what you're looking at, whether it's VIP at 6 years old up to 2017. So the parameters that exist already, but there's no table that really provides you 100% the answer. I'm just wondering if we could come up with a tool.
No, thank you, Lisa, for that. And we do recognize the complexity with the many parameters that go into determining a grant amount. And so there are a couple of areas that are being explored, but yes, we do appreciate the comment on some type of tool, if you will, that we can, you can put in a few parameters and be able to quickly understand a range or a general amount that you could be eligible for. So no, thank you for that comment.
Yeah, and then I think to expand on that is, like, for example, it's really hard to understand, even as a dealer for me, when we're looking at Carl Moyer and I say, okay, minus 50% because it's this table, right? And it's not 100% clear. So anyways, I just think even if at minimum you had a table for one program that was going to be XYZ for smaller fleets, and then a different table for Carl Moyer, that would be really helpful.
Got it. And just as I note your comment and understanding a little bit more, are you implementing one specific, are you referring to the voucher incentive program, the VIP program? And those tables?
VIP is actually better, but Carl Moyer in general, because you've got bigger fleets on that one, but the table still is probably, that one's probably even harder. But even then, you still can't interpret it very well because the tables are so similar. Even if you just line them side by side, they're almost as similar. So that part even gets more confusing because they're really in some ways almost identical. So it's hard to understand the point of some of these tables, why they're different to begin with, if they're matching each other.
Got it. Okay, so definitely some clarity on those tables that are published in the VIP side, and then just some clarity or some tool, if you will, on the contract side with all the complexity and nuances. So yeah, definitely noted, and we are looking at ways to really, again, be transparent about the process, be very clear. It is complex. We do recognize that. It has many different parameters and nuances because we do want to take into account those different specificities in those projects and to award those and take those into consideration. But with that inherently comes more complexity, right? And so thank you for that. We'll look at better ways to display information, make it very clear what's the differences in tables, and then potentially even a tool to complement the contract route.
Thank you.
Was that the conclusion of your questions or comments, Lisa?
Thank you. That was it.
Perfect. All right. We can go ahead and proceed to the next one.
Yes, I see that Matthew Deal has his hand raised. So, Matthew, you now have the ability to unmute.
Sorry, that was a mistake, guys.
No problem. Thank you.
So if we don't have any more hands up or Q&As, I think that's next slide, please. And thank you all for coming today. We appreciate your participation and collaboration. And we just want to let you know, like we said, there will be future workshops, so please come and look for those through the notification process or on our website. Thank you again.
And if I could, just a couple of closing remarks here before we all jump off. First, again, thanks everyone for the participation here. I can't thank you all enough. First, we just wanted to share a couple things as it relates to the Moyer program, and just reiterating the point that it is a district implemented program. And so we do encourage, and we'll make sure these links are available on how to go about contacting your air districts for any type of specificity as it relates to program eligibility or any type of requirements. So definitely exploring that route and encourage communication there as well. And then this is the first of a series of workshops on both sides, Moyer and Farmer. And so again, please, if we could go back to that contact slide there, that Moyer help ARB.ca.gov and farmer@arb.ca.gov email accounts. We have staff readily available to take those inquiries in and those questions. And so please, any type of feedback, comments, questions, anything at all, please send to those respective emails. And then again, thank you all for today, and we really do welcome the first, and we continue to just evolve. This is the first of many, and we look to really continue to grow this program at both programs here in scope. And so thank you all. All right, and with that, we can go ahead again. Thanks everyone, and we'll go ahead and conclude it. And then the recording will be available. Just give us some time to process it. We'll make sure it is available and we'll send it out to everyone. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Let's stop the recording. Okay.